I hope you're all having a great week.
Before we get going, it's such a beautiful day here in Vermont that I thought it'd be nice to take a few seconds to take you outside with me and show you the beauty that surrounds me. Now let's get going.
I recently discovered a new, to me, type of art therapy called neurographic art. Neurographic art is, at its core, a simple way to work with the subconscious mind through drawing. This technique was invented by Russian psychologist Pavel Piskarev. Neurographic art can be used to do more complex psychotherapy. But at its core, the very basic form of neurographic art can be used by anyone at any time. One of the things I love the most about neurographic art is that you really only need a few basic supplies and they're really not that expensive. Another thing I really like about neurographic art is that it's a really mindful activity. Mindful activities help bring us in the present moment. And when we're in the present moment, focusing on the here and now, we can help reduce stress and anxiety. So it's not surprising that this practice can be very relaxing. And even more important, it can be lots of fun. If you think you can't draw or create art, this is a wonderful place to start. Because really it's very easy. All you need to get started is some paper. Here I have some just plain old photocopy paper, but you can use any type of paper. For my project, I used some hot press watercolor paper. Whatever you decide to work with, whatever you have on hand works well, but just make sure that if you're using watercolor medium, for instance, like watercolors or acrylic paints or anything like that, that whatever paper you use is thick enough that it can handle your paint. You'll also need a marker. I like to use a waterproof marker because I work with watercolors and that's how I usually prefer to color in some of my work. But if you're not planning on using a watercolor media, you can definitely use any old type of black marker. Even if it's not waterproof, it'll do the trick. And finally, the last thing you'll need is something to color in your artwork when you're done putting in your lines. And you can do this with simple color pencils, you can do it with watercolor, you can do it with paint, whatever you want and whatever you have on hand. I always like to encourage people to just use what they have on hand. There's no reason to go out and get expensive supplies if this is the first time you're trying something. But I do encourage you to give this a try because it's very easy and it's lots of fun, and you'll probably find yourself feeling pretty relaxed by the end of it. So I hope you have lots of fun. Let's get going.
Because I'm going to be working with watercolors at a later step in my process, I've decided to use a waterproof marker. I've also taped down my paper with some artist tape just to create a nice little border around my artwork and to make it easier for me to work with the paper, as sometimes working with watercolors can make the paper buckle and I want to keep it as flat as possible. To start the process, you're going to start at one end of your paper and you're going to create a wavy and curvy line. The important thing is to make sure that your lines are curved and not always following the same pattern. If you want to do this in an art therapy way, when you're drawing your lines, think of a problem you're facing or an issue that you would like to work through. Remember, you're not trying to draw anything specific. You're really just trying to make some lines. Once you're satisfied with how much you've filled your paper, we'll move on to the next step. In the next part of the process, you'll find all sharp corners where lines cross, and you'll turn those sharp corners into rounded edges. For the subconscious mind, this is symbolic of smoothing out the sharpness of certain issues we may be facing. You'll keep repeating this process until you've found all sharp corners and turn them into softer, round edges. If you want, you can also add some shapes overlapping your lines. For my project, I decided to add some circles in different sizes. When I'm adding a pattern of shapes to any art project, I usually like to add an uneven number of shapes because I find it more aesthetically pleasing to my eyes. In this case, I added a total of 7 circles in different places in my project. Once I was done adding my circle, I repeated the process of rounding sharp corners and turning them into soft edges. And once I was done doing this, I was ready to start adding some color to my artwork. Even before adding the color, it does look pretty cool already. It's really up to you what colors you'll decide to use for your project. For my project, I decided to use some bright colors because I find them cheerful and uplifting to my mood. It really doesn't matter too much what colors you decide to use. The important thing is that you stay in the moment as you're creating your artwork. Listening to music I find relaxing when I'm working on a project such as this can also be very helpful. As you can see, there really is nothing complicated about this process. If you have kids, this is an activity you can easily share with them. When I was done adding color to my project, I decided it would be nice to add some little white dots in between the circles I created to connect all of them. As you're creating your own artwork, let your intuition and your inspiration guide you. When I'm having fun creating a project, I usually find it very easy to get inspired and make little additions to my project. Now that I'm done creating this little piece of artwork, it's time for me to take my artist tape off and admire my beautiful work. I really love the abstract qualities of neurographic art. Not only do I find this process relaxing, but it's also lots of fun. I hope watching this video has given you the inspiration to try this mindful little practice. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy creating!